Nature, life experiences, and creative imagination are common sources of inspiration to artists and painters all around the world. But did you know that the Bible has inspired many famous paintings you've probably seen or heard about? From Leonardo Da Vinci to Michelangelo, many artworks from historic painters that you admire were inspired by the Holy Book. In this video, we will share 10 paintings you didn't know were inspired by the Bible. So, if you are curious about the Bible's hidden influence on paintings, watch this video until the end. Number 10. Creation of Adam by Michelangelo. Creation of Adam, also known as Creation of Man, is a breathtaking work of art with many symbolic expressions. This fresco painting, located on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel inside the Vatican Museums, was painted by an Italian artist named Michelangelo between 1508 and 1512. It has been called a difficult painting because it took the painter 16 days to finish. The phrase found in the book of Genesis chapter 1 verse 27, which says, "God created human beings in his own image," was the verse behind the inspiration of this work of art. On the right side of the painting, Michelangelo illustrated God as an older man, surrounded by angelic beings inside a nebulous. On the left side of the painting, we find Adam, who is created in the image of God, receiving the breath of life. The painting depicted God reaching out to Adam with his finger, which could allude to Adam receiving the breath of life. Number 9. Tower of Babel by Peter Bruegel the Elder. According to some archival sources, Peter Bruegel the Elder was a faithful Catholic. His paintings reflected his beliefs, as many of them were inspired by the Bible. One of them is the famous Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel painting was inspired by the story of the Tower of Babel in the book of Genesis chapter 11 verses 1 to 9. The painting shows the tower's construction, with the city of Antwerp, where Bruegel worked, as the backdrop of the painting. The biblical construction of the tower symbolizes man's ambition to attain the highest possible goal. This incredible masterpiece was created in 1563 and was among the paintings commissioned by Nicolaus Jonglenik, a collector and historian. Bruegel created 3 versions of this painting, but we only have 2 of them to this day. The 2 paintings are in Museum Boijmans van Beuningen in Rotterdam and Vienna's Kunsthistorisches Museum. Number 8. The Adoration of the Golden Calf by Nicolas Poussin. The Adoration of the Golden Calf, originally made as a pair with another called The Crossing of the Red Sea, was created by Nicolas Poussin between 1633 and 1634. The painting tells the story recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 32 of how the Israelites got tired of waiting for Moses, who had gone to Mount Sinai for many days and nights to meet with God. The people of Israel demanded that Aaron make a god to lead them because they didn't know what had happened to Moses. Aaron, unfortunately, yielded to the people's demands. In verses 3 to 4, the Bible says that the people took the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. Then Aaron took the gold, melted it down, and molded it into the shape of a calf. The people ended up worshipping this image, which brought God's anger upon his people. In the painting, the golden calf can easily be seen with Israelites around it in a jubilant atmosphere. Number 7. The Battle of Jericho by Johann Heinrich Schönfeld. Johann Heinrich Schönfeld was a German painter known for his biblical paintings. His paintings include the reconciliation of Jacob with Esau, Christ carrying the cross, and the Battle of Jericho, among many others. The Battle of Jericho painting was inspired by the story of the falling of the wall of the city of Jericho, as written in the book of Joshua chapter 5. The wall of Jericho was the sure guard for Jericho, and they kept it shut because of their fear for the Israelites as they moved their conquest forward. God instructed the Israelites to go around the wall of Jericho once a day for 6 days, and then to go 7 times on the 7th day. On the 7th day, they were instructed to blast their horns and shout. Joshua chapter 5 verse 20 describes, "When the people heard the sound of the ram's horns, they shouted as loud as they could. Suddenly, the walls of Jericho collapsed, and the Israelites charged straight into the town and captured it." Number 6. Moses on Mount Sinai by Jean-Léon Gérôme. Moses on Mount Sinai is an oil painting created by Jean-Léon Gérôme in the 19th century. The oil painting depicts Moses receiving the Ten Commandments from God on Mount Sinai, as recorded in the book of Exodus, chapter 34. This has been described as one of the most important moments in biblical history. In the composition of the painting, Moses is at the center of the scene, while the Israelites are at the foot of Mount Sinai. The figure of Moses is imposing, with a muscular body and white beard. Jean Leon was inspired to create this masterpiece after a trip to Egypt, where he grew fascinated with the culture and history of the ancient Middle East. The French government commissioned Jean Leon's painting at the Universal Exhibition of 1878. The Bible's influence on our culture goes deep and shows its influence in the paintings that have graced the art world. Let us look at 5 more paintings you didn't know were inspired by the Bible. Number 5. Sacrifice of Isaac by Michelangelo Maurici da Caravaggio. Sacrifice of Isaac is a painting by Michelangelo Maurici da Caravaggio. He painted the masterpiece between May 1603 and January 1604, commissioned by Cardinal Maffeo Barberini, who later became Pope Urban VIII. The creative piece depicts the Old Testament story of Abraham when God tested Abraham's obedience to God's command by asking him to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. The story is found in the book of Genesis, chapter 22. Caravaggio heightens the dramatic effect by painting an angel holding Abraham's hand and pointing to the ram, the divine provision to take Isaac's place. The story is illustrated in the book of Genesis chapter 22, verses 11 and 12, which says, "At the moment the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, 'Abraham, Abraham.' 'Yes,' Abraham replied, 'Here I am.' 'Don't lay a hand on the boy,' the angel said. 'Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son.'" Number 4. Ruth in the Field of Boaz by Julius Schnorr von Keresfeld. This work of art, Ruth in the Field of Boaz, created by a German painter, Julius Schnorr von Keresfeld, was inspired by the biblical story of Boaz and Ruth. The beautiful artwork was painted in Munich and was created based on a drawing Julius Schnorr von Keresfeld had worked on a few years earlier in Italy. The painting depicts the story of the first meeting of Boaz and Ruth, as documented in the book of Ruth chapter 2. In the painting, we can see Boaz talking to Ruth as she gathers stalks of grain left over after harvest. The story narrates that Ruth was gathering the grain to help Naomi, her mother-in-law. Once Boaz found out who she was and her situation, she told her always to gather grain from his field, and he asked that his workers leave a lot of grain so she could gather enough. Ruth's kindness toward her mother-in-law was rewarded when Boaz redeemed her by marrying her. This positioned her in David's bloodline, positioning her in Jesus' genealogy as recorded in the books of Matthew, chapter 1, verse 5, and the book of Luke, chapter 3, verse 32. Number 3. Jacob Wrestling with the Angel by Alexander Louis Leroy. This painting, Jacob Wrestling with the Angel, was created in 1865 by a French painter and illustrator, Alexander Louis Leroy. The original painting is in the Musée Roger Quillot in Clermont-Ferrand, France. The story that inspired Alexander Louis Leroy is found in the book of Genesis, chapter 32, verses 22 to 32, where Jacob wrestled with an angel of God. In the painting, we can appreciate a fierce duel between Jacob and an angelic being. As recorded in the Bible, the angel removed Jacob's hip bone from its socket when the angel saw he would not win the match. Jacob told the angel, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Before the angel left him, his name was changed to Israel. Number 2. The Vision of the Valley of Dry Bones by Gustave Doré. Gustave Doré was a French painter well known for his highly imaginative and dramatic biblical illustrations, which include the death of Samson, Jesus blessing the children, and the Vision of the Valley of Dry Bones, among many others. The Vision of the Valley of Dry Bones is a painting created in 1866 to illustrate an imaginative scenery of Prophet Ezekiel's vision in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37. This story in the book of Ezekiel relates to the prophecy God gave Ezekiel for the people of Israel. It details a vision where the Spirit of the Lord took him on a journey in a valley full of dry human bones to convey the state of the people of Israel. The Lord commanded Ezekiel to speak a prophetic message to these bones and say, "Dry bones, listen to the word of the Lord." The The story says in verse 7, "I spoke this message just as he told me. Suddenly as I spoke, there was a noise all across the valley. The dry bones in the valley came together. They were covered with flesh, and life was breathed into them after Ezekiel prophesied as God told him to." This was to portray the prophecy God would have Ezekiel give Israel, that they would be revived and restored. The number one painting you didn't know was inspired by the Bible: The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest artists in history, made the most famous representation of Jesus at the Last Supper with his disciples in painting, as told in the 4 Gospels in the Bible. This mural was painted between 1495 and 1498 on the wall in the refectory of the Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan. As written in the book of Matthew chapter 26 verse 21, Jesus revealed to his disciples that one of them would betray him. Leonardo was inspired to capture the reaction and emotions of each of the disciples to this and give a visual representation of the moment just before the identification of Judas. Specific attributes in the painting can identify each of the disciples. James, to Christ's left, throws his arms out. Thomas, behind James, holds his finger pointing up, alluding to his reunion with Christ after his resurrection, where he used his fingers to confirm Jesus' wounds in the book of John chapter 20, verses 24 to 28. We can also appreciate one of the disciples, 3 figured to the right of Jesus, pointing to himself, which depicts the question in the book of Matthew chapter 26, verse 22, which says, "Am I the one, Lord?" Judas, to Christ's left, reaches toward a plate beside Christ, as written in the book of Matthew chapter 26, verse 23, which says, "He replied, 'One of you who has just eaten from this bowl with me will betray me.'" The Last Supper offers perhaps the most complete testimony to Da Vinci's multifaceted genius, urge to experiment, and inexhaustible curiosity. The way the Bible has influenced our culture runs deep. The Bible inspired many popular paintings throughout history. We invite you to study the Bible for more exciting stories and accounts that will prove just how much influence the Holy Book has had on our culture.